Hello, I'm John O'Connor. I'm a course director of the M.Phil in Psychoanalytic Studies at Trinity College, Dublin. Also assistant professor of clinical psychology. My background is as a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist. On this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about the M.Phil in Psychoanalytic Studies as it's run in the School of Psychology in Trinity College. I'm looking at the overall philosophy of the course, something of our teaching methods, about our modules, about the dissertation, which is a requirement of the course, and also about how you may apply for the course. The program at a glance, just to kind of summarize what we're about and what is involved in the course. This is a one-year academic program exploring psychoanalytic theory and applications. We have 6 taught modules over the 2 terms. We've 2 days a week teaching with 8 hours classroom contact per week. Our teaching is in seminar style. We have a high level of interaction and discussion in classes. There's a lot of scope for raising ideas and questions, talking with one another, and trying to make sense of ideas through your own experience. Also in the course, we have a dissertation, and this is obviously one of the important aspects of the course. It's 15,000 words in length, approximately, and it's submitted toward the end of the year in mid-July. Support is provided with the development of a dissertation idea and in the writing and presentation of the dissertation over the course of the program. Why this course? Why might you select to do an M.Phil in Psychoanalytic Studies or to look at the area of psychoanalysis? How might it benefit you in your studies, in your development of kind of a clinical practice, or more generally in your kind of overall outlook? Many of our students come to the course on a search for answers to questions about human experience, and maybe not surprisingly, often these questions are inspired, at least in part, by personal experience. Some draw on the course as a bridge to training in a clinical field, in psychotherapy, clinical psychology, counseling psychology, counseling maybe more generally, coaching, or in any of the kind of fields where a level of understanding of human experience and human behavior are important. It's important to say that it's often curiosity that brings people to this area. This is often a curiosity about human motivation and a desire to look at subjects that are not looked at generally in other fields or aren't looked at in a concerted way in other fields. Subjects such as sexuality, aggression, creativity, etc. These are often subjects that are moved around or are difficult to negotiate. And psychoanalysis perhaps has been one of those fields that has looked at these subjects in a particularly pointed way and has sought to get to the core, get to the heart of these. As seeing them as parts of our human experience, of our human psychological makeup, and maybe less so in relation to their problematic nature. Also, you may use the material on this course to supplement your existing knowledge and to give a fresh perspective to add to those you already have. So our students may come from backgrounds in philosophy or in psychology or in anthropology, or in a vast range of other fields that have and have already existing kind of perspectives particular kinds of ideas, particular kind of assumptions, particular senses of things. And I suppose students often use this course to enhance that, or to grow that in some ways, or to bring some kind of contrast, or to fill in some area that feels like it needs to be addressed. Of course, you may also wish to bring a psychoanalytic lens to work you're doing in a field already, in some field of practice. That may be a clinical field or a creative field, or in some other field. And of course, many of our students bring a very personal, I suppose, interest into the course, as well as an interest in something that is more about a professional development, and is more maybe related to career development. Of the questions we address on the course, which are multiple, in some senses we are built on kind of questions and attempts to answer those questions. Among these questions are, why do we experience anxiety? What purpose do dreams serve in our lives? How do we deal with the enormity of what we meet in the world, all of that stimulation that is out there, which is perhaps particularly relevant today? How do we develop satisfying relationships that are beneficial for us, that are satisfying, that help us to grow? What attracts us to people who are damaging to us? Why do we repeatedly meet people who present us with the same kind of problem? What attracts us to this kind of experience? What of us is in the things we enjoy? Maybe another way of putting that is what is it that brings us to select one thing and to reject another, or to bring us satisfaction with one thing and dissatisfaction with another? What is the role of fiction in our lives? How does self-criticism come about? Now, each of these questions are kind of questions that have got a richness and a depth to them, both in the question themselves, but also in the kind of answers that we may proffer. I'm going to move on now just to say a little bit generally about psychoanalysis and our approach to psychoanalysis on this course. Psychoanalysis is a study of the relationship between consciousness and unconscious mental life. That's very much the starting point of psychoanalysis. It's the most general definition of psychoanalysis. It covers all of the different fields of psychoanalysis. Freud's suggestion that most of our psychological life is unconscious, that it exists beyond our immediate awareness, is still a contentious one today. It's an idea that is objected to, maybe more so than anything else in psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is concerned with what influences our day-to-day experience. And it has developed since approximately 1890 and is still in development and flux. Psychoanalysis emerged and developed over an era of strife and change. In these 130 years, there's been we've had wars and revolutions and pandemics, as we also have had great developments in science and in technology and medicine, also in the fields of psychology and, of course, psychoanalysis also. And psychoanalysis has been a part of this development of the modern world, particularly so in its bringing of ideas of mind into our discourse, in our understanding of those subjects I alluded to earlier: sexuality, aggression, creativity, the importance of our relationships to one another. Specifically on this course, we approach psychoanalysis in a non-dogmatic manner. We think of psychoanalysis as a set of theories, all of which are concerned with what underpins our experience as humans. Psychoanalysis is concerned with our struggles with freedom, for instance, the experience of anxiety, and the kinds of protections or defenses we develop to deal with this. I suppose in relation to this point, this is one of the, I suppose, core elements of psychoanalysis, and in many ways one of the ideas that translates into the world is the idea that a great deal of psychological life is about the experience of anxiety that itself is a response to what is threatening in the world. But this anxiety provokes a need in us to protect ourselves in some ways, and that we develop various kinds of defenses, too numerous to talk about, but we develop defenses in order to deal with that, but that these defenses then come to be an important part of our lives. These defenses, in a way, come to influence our overall experience of things. While they help us in protecting us from anxiety or from high levels of anxiety, they may also limit our ability to experience the world. Psychoanalysis explores what motivates us also, and our struggle to turn our strivings, what we wish for, what we want, what we desire, into achievements, into things we see through. This is quite a struggle. The struggle to move from desire to some realization of that desire. We're interested in how psychoanalytic theory relates to the contemporary world, where all of this kind of striving and all of the ideals meet with complication. For instance, in the area of climate change and our response to that, partly our resistance to maybe climate change science in a way, our response to the coronavirus pandemic, gender identity, political tensions, sexuality, religious belief, disbelief, etc. We on this course we consider four main theoretical positions, among others. We encourage students of the course to read these central authors, as well as a wider range of kind of thinkers who are connected with these authors, but also who are outside of their specific fields. I'll mention something about each of these four authors and what makes their contribution significant, and what we also focus on in the course. Sigmund Freud, who is the father of psychoanalysis, the originator of psychoanalysis, and the person whose ideas are perhaps the widest and most influential. Freud influenced all of psychoanalysis. He originated some of the observations, many of the questions, and at least some of the answers to those questions. Freud is very important for his idea of unconscious mental life. While figures before Freud had been aware of the unconscious and its part in our experience, it was Freud's major development to bring a system of thought, or to develop a system of thought that helped place the unconscious in relation to the mental life as a whole. Among the many things that Freud looked at and that we talk about maybe repeatedly on the course are the repetition compulsion, that desire or that kind of reality that we have, that we tend to repeat things, often things that are difficult for us. The role of dreams in mental life, which we'll say a little bit about later, and the psychoanalytic process, the development of a psychotherapeutic space where certain things are transacted, as well as the role of sexuality in psychological life. Freud is maybe particularly famous for his placing of sexuality as being the very central motivation within human life. Now, the sexuality Freud was talking about isn't a very simple and straightforward subject. It's a slightly more complex thing, but it is an important aspect of his theory. Melanie Klein is very significant because of her ideas on the role of destructiveness in psychological life. That destructiveness and our own destructiveness is something that we need to handle. It's something that is present from early in our lives and has a major influence on how we experience things. It partly results in experiences of guilt for the damage that we have done or that we may feel we have done, and then the efforts at repairing the damage done. Klein's work is much more substantial than this, but this is kind of one aspect of her thinking. Wilfred Bion was substantially influenced by Klein, but also developed many of his own ideas. The idea of containment is important among these. This is an idea of an active process that helps to digest otherwise undigested material. The idea that there is a function in our minds and also in the world that helps us to make sense of or to digest things that are very raw for us. Bion developed in relation to this a theory of thinking that gave special place to emotion. This is a theory of thinking that is different than a cognitive theory of thinking. It is not an information processing theory of thinking. It is a theory of thoughts that contains at their core an emotional valence. So for Bion, emotion is a central aspect of thought and of thinking. Donald Winnicott's work, we're concerned there with the development of the mother and baby, or what takes place or what is transacted between mother and baby, and the important part that mothering or caring has for the baby, and for and the relationship between the carer and the cared for more generally. Winnicott talked about this role as being one of providing a facilitating environment or a facilitating space. So in a way, we all require spaces in which our underlying kind of impulses, our underlying desires, our underlying tendencies can be helped to emerge and can be held and protected in some way, so as to develop. Winnicott's also important for the idea of the true self, the idea that there is a core self that is quite vulnerable, but that is the source of creativity and spontaneity and well-being for us, but that this true self, due to its vulnerability, often requires the development of false self compromises. That we need to develop some form of protection or some form of almost like a secondary skin or some way of being that protects our true self. So we may develop ways of being in the world that make us seem one way, while underneath that, and at the level of the true self, we are quite different. I'll just say something about the learning environment on the course. This is important just to give you a sense of our overall approach to kind of teaching and to classes and how we think about this and how we go about it. We have an understanding that our students may not have much exposure to psychoanalytic ideas in their prior studies, and we really help our students to navigate through these complex ideas and to relate these ideas to what are for them maybe already familiar ideas. So we try to break down psychoanalysis into its basic building blocks. We look at the assumptions that are behind it. We look at some of the language that's used, and we try to see how that language can be kind of understood and acquired, and how it can equip us to think about experience. In order to do this, we keep the course pretty small, and our teaching is through small group seminars where we essentially sit in a circular formation, and there's a scope for discussion of ideas. Some students will are more engaged in these kinds of discussions, and some may be quieter. And we have an understanding that there's always going to be a balance within a group, within a class, between people who are more vocal and others who are quieter. We don't require people to be very vocal, and some people may say very little in the group or very little in particular classes, and we are very kind of understanding of that. The learning really takes place through this exploration of ideas and the trading of perspectives within a class. And because our students come from a variety of backgrounds and nationalities, we have scope to bring different perspectives, starting points, and assumptions into our discussions. And as I've said before, but maybe it's important to reiterate, we approach ideas in a non-dogmatic manner. So we're not seeing any one perspective as winning out over others, and we're not asking you to reach the same conclusions as we may reach. In relation to the course structure, we have 6 taught modules. These are as follows: the emotional world of the child, psychoanalysis and art, dreams, dreaming and psychological life, object relations theory, the unconscious in groups, organizations and society, and psychoanalysis and the body. The first 3 of these are completed in the first term, and assignments are completed at the end of that term. The second 3, object relations, the unconscious in groups, and psychoanalysis and the body, are completed in the second term. Again, with the assignments for each of these being submitted at the end of the term. The dissertation is conducted over the course of the program as a whole. So we introduce students to the dissertation from the very beginning of the program, ask them to think about ideas, and we work through from that point to completion, which is kind of mid-July. Okay. We're coming to a close now of this presentation. Just to give you some kind of details around the application process, if you're interested in that. Firstly, to say that applications are currently open for the course. And we accept applicants on a kind of first come, first served basis. So we try to respond to applications. We try to, within 2 weeks of the application being received. You may apply at the link that's supplied here. The application process beyond that point is well signposted. We accept applications from candidates who have a 2-1 or higher or equivalent in their primary degree, or who anticipate achieving this in upcoming exams, and who, very importantly, have a specific interest in psychoanalysis. I suppose it is important if you're going to do a course of this kind, that you have an interest in the area. Maybe you've done some reading in the area, have a sense of what it involves, the kind of questions that it asks, and the kinds of conclusions or propositions that it makes. It's important that there is a fit between yourself and the subject matter. If you are making an application, you will be uploading a number of documents alongside your application. You will need to upload a full transcript of your primary degree, if or when that's available. If your transcript, if you haven't as yet completed your course, the transcript can be submitted a little bit later in the process. You will also be submitting a curriculum vitae or a resume, one that includes details of your academic and vocational experience in particular, and where English has not been your first language, proof of English language competence. You will find further details of these tests of English language competence with the application process. A small number of other documents are also required, and you'll see details of those with in the application system itself. We'd also ask that if you're applying, to please contact your 2 referees prior to or at the time of your application to the course. This will help to ease the process of submitting references, which can be at times a slow one if some attention isn't paid to that. Your referees will be contacted automatically when you apply, and they will be asked to upload documents. I hope that this presentation has helped you to get a sense of the M.Phil in psychoanalytic studies. I appreciate that it may be a little bit text heavy and that some of the material may be a little complex. If you would like to contact me or to contact my colleague Anne-Marie Duffy to ask about anything to do with the course and with the application process, we would be very happy to help you with that. You will see email addresses for Anne-Marie and for myself on this slide. Okay, thank you.